Alright guys, how's it going? As the title will suggest, I want to do a quick shout out to kick things off, and I want to shout out a fellow YouTuber, a good friend of mine on here, Carlos, Eastwood for Life fan. He was very kind enough to give me a shout out recently on one of his videos. Really appreciated it, said some very kind words. It does mean a lot to me, so I wanted to shout out his channel. Obviously I'll leave the link in the description below. There's lots and lots of great Blu-ray updates. Very similar taste in kind of cool action films to myself. Obviously Eastwood, as in the Eastwood fan for life, but also I know he loves a bit of Bruce Lee. I know he loves his Chuck Norris, and I thought what better way to shout him out than to dedicate a video to him. So Carlos, this video right here is dedicated to you.
Mr. Police! No, mister!
Right, so my earliest memories of this film in question were renting it on a VHS tape when I remember it being more boringly titled Nico here in the UK. And this was a time when the video store scene was at its zenith, and it was also a golden age for action movie stars. This was in fact mine and cinema's introduction to a new 80s action star, the now infamous, I suppose, Steven Seagal. I was already well versed in the kind of Van Damme and Chuck Norris acrobatics, so it was a bit different at the time to see this kind of 6 foot plus hard ass and his seemingly new superpower, the Japanese martial art of Aikido. Let's take a look. Alright, so Above the Law from 1988, and brace yourself for this because, well, I thought it was just going to be another cop versus a group of baddies movie, and I suppose it is at its core, but it's also actually the story of Nico, a detective who battles against a host of corrupt cops and crooked CIA agents who are somehow involved in funding missions to kill South American drug lords, whilst also trying to take out a senator who was trying to expose their wrongdoings. And also it somehow manages to fit in a storyline about illegal immigrants living under a church, whilst also juggling storylines about Nico's partner and his family, like his new baby. And yeah, there's a lot of plot crammed into this thing. And so yeah, Above the Law could probably drop at least one storyline. Probably the one about the immigrants under the church for myself, because even I forgot to mention that there's also a Vietnam flashback stuffed in here somewhere where we learn that Nico has a military past and a good set of morals as he first butts head with the film's drug trafficking main villain.
I can make you disappear.
Grab his leg.
What the hell are you doing, man?
Nico! Nico! Nico!
Guys, I'm Steven at Real Classic Film Reviews, checking out some good old video store nostalgia. Tell me your thoughts on Steven Seagal below, and how do you rate his early work versus some of his more recent fare? And if classic films of all shapes and sizes interest you, then click that subscribe button and the notification bell to keep up to date with all classic films. So this was Steven Frederick Seagal's debut movie, which is pretty impressive really, because he's surprisingly good in it. If you only know him from his more recent disastrous straight-to-video output, then some of this will probably shock you. Now, I'm not getting too excited. He's no Clint Eastwood, obviously, but he does have that kind of squinty glare and half-whispered but still threatening voice, as well as a black belt in some form of Japanese judo/karate hybrid, where he essentially blocks incoming attacks before giving his attacker a good slap or breaking their arm.
Come on, man, not today, please. Put the gun away.
However, the scenes in Above the Law, which we do see Seagal practicing his fighting skills, do stand out. Seagal choreographed all this action, and I do enjoy how he shows the style of fighting in a kind of practical, realistic and quite chaotic fashion. I love how he fits barroom brawls, shootouts, outrageous bone snapping and even sword fighting into this film. It's like Seagal was putting together a 90-minute CV, and it must have worked. It was pretty cool watching this and remembering that Sharon Stone, super young here, played Seagal's wife, which I'd totally forgotten about. By this point, she'd already done a few parts, but it wouldn't be until 1990's Total Recall, and more importantly, 92's Basic Instinct that should become the femme fatale of the 90s. It's also great to see Foxy Brown herself, the great Pam Grier as Nico's partner. I'll admit to being a bit disappointed by how little she's used in the film, and she spends most of her time in a coma, which isn't really a spoiler because for the first 20 minutes of this film, she continually mentions how she's going to be off street duty in a week. Probably could have kept that to herself. The great Henry Silva, which I'm a huge fan of, plays the big nasty in this film, and he does it really well. If you know your TV history, you'll remember him as Buck Rogers' evil adversary Kane in the movie and TV series Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. Here he's a dodgy CIA type who I think is involved in some kind of assassination plot against a senator who was going to uncover some drug trafficking that he's involved in. So yeah, I do have a soft spot for some good old vintage Steven Seagal. From this right up onto his almost cameo appearance in 96's Executive Decision, he was up there with all the big names in action cinema. Not so anymore, unfortunately. If video stores were still around today, may they rest in peace, he'd surely have his own section because his straight-to-video output from the last 20 years has been immense. So watching Above the Law back now, it's pretty hilarious how much of a bad cop Nico is. I mean, yeah, he has some preachy moments and he's pretty passionate about taking down the bad guys, but I really lost count along the way of how many people he beats half to death, whether they've given him some lip in a bar or slept with his cousin or something. It doesn't matter because you're going to get your nose punched in and you're going to get your arm broken. It's great stuff. And it's in those kind of grisly, bone-crunching moments where Seagal excels, and that's the real reason why you're here watching it, you know. His general acting abilities have been pretty panned over the years, but to be honest, he's not really any worse than the Van Dammes and the Schwarzeneggers or even the Stallones, if you're really honest with yourself. If you've never seen early Seagal, then Above the Law, along with the rest of his early 90s output, is definitely worth tracking down. If you fancy some pre-special effects, old-school action cinema, it's nice to have a palate cleanser sometimes amongst the fast and furiousness of modern action cinema. Go check it out.